Okay, so back again. This is Luxury's Outdated. So we're going to go with the Spectrum, the ZX Spectrum version of Outrun today. As you can see, the ZX Spectrum, no, rather the Spectrum Plus 2 menu here. Just going to load this up. So, a bit of an education this for me. I've actually had I collect computers, and I had the Spectrum. I have a Plus 2 and I have a 48K, and literally in the process of trying to get this game working, I've actually learned how to get the Spectrum working. So, just loading this up here now. I'll probably mention this again later on, but wasn't a big Spectrum fan back in the early days. So we're loading away there now, make sure it's nice and zoomed in. Wasn't a big Spectrum fan back in the day, so don't really know much about the system. I'm kind of getting to learn a bit about it now. So to the wonders of editing, we'll skip ahead a bit and wait until something interesting happens. So talk to you in a minute. So, still loading away. One of the things about the way the game works, the Spectrum version, is that there's two tapes. I may have mentioned this in the other review. One, which is the game on it, and the back of it has a copy of the Outrun music. The second tape is the data files. So, as you play the game and drive through the various routes, and as you come to forks in the road and go left and right, it'll load the next section of road ahead. There's a 48K one, and on the other side of the tape it's 128K data. So depending on which, there we go. We've got a nice loading screen. So depending on which version of the game, which version of the Spectrum you have, rather, you have a slightly different game. I think the 128K one has sound as well, or sound and music, whereas the 48K just has sound. We're loading the 128K version at the moment, by the way. So there's a nice little timer there. It's always good because it'll let you know basically how long your game is going to take to load, and usually, more importantly, it'll let you know the game hasn't loaded properly when it gets to 0 and nothing happens. So we'll just wait and see. Again, wonders of editing, you're not going to have to wait a minute, so we'll jump ahead to the game. And we're back. So we've got a little menu here to see what we need to do. I'm just going to go in and change the controls. Spectrum was a really odd beast in that, well, from my point of view anyway, in that it didn't seem to come with its own joystick interface. The 48K one didn't come with it all, and you had to get a little add-in box that would allow you to connect joysticks in. The Plus 2 and the Plus 3, and I think the 128K version did, but they didn't seem to be compatible with regular joysticks, even though they were 9-pin. So invariably you'd end up with a third-party adapter, and that is the Kempston one there listed in the middle. The norm for a lot of people is just playing with keys. So again, it's one of the reasons that I tended to avoid the system for years. The colour clash, which is where you're going to get odd-looking colours and lots of outlines and things. The lack of an easy way of getting a controller working, and the fact that I've never really thought the sound was as good as the Commodore kind of always put me off. But again, I'm reading up on finding out there's a lot of kind of games that were on the system that would have there wouldn't have been a comparable Commodore 64 version. There's some conversions that the version of Chase HQ, for example, on the Spectrum is brilliant apparently, and the version on the Commodore 64 is a bit rubbish. I'll actually be looking at that one of the times just to kind of show you how bad a conversion can be. But anyway, we'll go and see what we can do with this now, see if we can load this up. I won't make you wait, so we'll jump ahead to the game now in a minute. Straight in there, it's loaded up, I'm ready to go. So first of all, the downsides, obviously not as colourful as the Commodore 64 version. Speed, it's even at full speed there, it's kind of chugging along. I'd actually heard about people running an emulated version of this on a PC and running it at 250% speed just to get it running properly. That's actually the end of the downsides. It's much more detailed than the Commodore 64 version. You can see the car there. I just crashed there deliberately, of course, just to give you a side view of the car. Palm trees there. It's all very precise and detailed. It's all very precise there. Quite a big lane with the full. Basically, similar to the arcade machine. You've got a couple of lanes there. The Commodore was basically just hit a car here again. The Commodore was pretty much just like a dirt track, pretty much by comparison to this. Again, look at the detailing in the houses there. The Commodore 64 one, you had those kind of Lego houses. Duplo, not even Lego, Duplo. They were just kind of big blocky blue and red and yellow things. These ones here are much more detailed. So I have to admit, very impressed by the level of detail. When I'm running at top speed here, it's not too bad, but you don't. I crashed again there. You just don't get the sense of speed you're getting with the Commodore one. Also, unless I'm misreading it, there doesn't seem to be indication as to what gear I'm in. Now, hopefully we're coming to a fork on the road soon. Yeah, there we go. So this is what I mentioned yesterday. Commodore 64 version didn't have the branching roads. That's the check point. This does, but the downside is you have to basically work your tape deck, and it'll try and load up the levels. So it's found block 2 and it wants block 3. It's actually kind of clever. So you won't have to sit through all this. I'm going to pause it for a minute and we'll come back in. Okay, so we should be back now shortly. This is nearly finished loading block 3. And again, downside to the tapes is you have to kind of keep an eye on it. How to hit stop there to stop it playing any more data. Oh, windmills. Some Porsches there. Again, for someone who's not, I wouldn't go as far as saying hating, but definitely not really a fan of the Spectrum, it's an interesting experience. It is kind of a lot better looking than the Commodore 64 version. Like I said, the downside is just the speed. This is played on, for a tape based machine anyway, about the top Spectrum you could get, the 128K version, and it's still very slow. You see you can really see the road just gradually updating as we're going. It's not necessarily bad, it's just a very different experience. It also seems to be a lot more forgiving, even now what will be the time limit on this, but from what I've seen of it so far, it seems to be a lot easier than the Commodore 64 version. I may have picked a slightly hard route here though. So, just to sum up, very different from the Commodore 64 version, almost that different that I can't say one is any better or worse than the other. It really is losing out on speed. The tape-based branching kind of works. It can get a bit messy, but oh, hang on, we're kind of close to the edge of this level. I may make it through. No. Out of time. The tape-based branching does work. Let's put my secret edge in here. The graphics very, very good. Very impressed by them. Sound-wise, it's pretty good. Again, I give it about the same rating as the Commodore 64 version. I'd say that they're both good, but for two different reasons. Again, I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but the Commodore 64 version, nice and fast, very colourful, graphics a bit blocky, quite hard. The Spectrum, very slow, graphics excellent, and a little bit easier, but the lack of speed really does kill it. It's maybe worth going and trying the emulator route, emulating it and running it nice and fast. I may try that myself sometime. So there you go, that's the Spectrum version of Outrun.